I'm Katie, and I work with people who have chronic health conditions. That can mean like a chronic illness or a chronic pain condition, but generally it's people who have some kind of health challenge that is difficult to integrate into their day-to-day life. And a lot of times, what I'm realizing is it's more of the things that are like not preventable and also not curable. When we talk about chronic health in the US, we're really mostly talking about like heart disease. That's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things like endometriosis or multiple sclerosis or Lyme disease or, things that are, not going away and can be helped by the medical system potentially, but that like are things that persistently someone's got to deal with through their entire life. And so how to honor that and deal with that in a way that isn't fighting against yourself constantly.
You talk about that in a number of ways, but just like stop fighting against your body. Can you say a little bit more about what it looks like when someone actually does that and starts maybe working with their body instead?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think about, for over a decade, for probably like 15 years, I felt like I was going to war with my body every single day. And that looked like I mean, I literally would like wake up and then cry in the shower and try to wrangle myself into clothes that like might be comfortable for the rest of the day and just be in pain all day. So I think a lot of times fighting your body when you have a chronic condition looks like trying to fit yourself into the schedule, into the parameters that a quote unquote like normal, I kind of hate that word, but I just use it for ease person does every single day. And expecting your body to be able to adhere to that when that's not really like the reality that your body is living in. And so when someone stops fighting against their body, there's a lot more ease that comes with that. It's like acknowledging the shift in your energy levels and having tools to work with those shifts. It's how do I actually stop being afraid to talk about what's going on with my body and how to talk about it with like a partner versus a coworker versus your boss, in different ways that make you feel comfortable rather than make you feel very nervous or like you're sharing too much. There's lots of different things, but it's like, how do you honor what's going on in your body and not try to force yourself into a box that's going to make you miserable?
Mhm. Well, you've obviously touched on it some, but I'm curious to hear a little bit more about. Obviously, this is an important topic to you and in a conversation that you have regularly, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about why this is so personal to you.
Yeah, so Endometriosis Awareness Month is incredibly personal to me. It's not just a month, but but it's every day. I have endo and I have had since I was probably, I don't know, 16, but I didn't get diagnosed until I was 34,
Wow.
I think. 30, yeah, I think 33 or 34, which is insane. Um, It is one of the most painful diseases in the world. It affects nearly 1 in 9 people, women, people who identify as people who are born as women. But actually, you know what? It also affects men. So I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to say people. Um, and yeah, I think it's so important because so many people, I think more people now sort of know the word endometriosis and have heard of it. There's been in the past 5 or 10 years some really powerful films and books, and people speaking out. So it's like a little bit more familiar in the zeitgeist, but it's also something that can be really difficult to talk about because it's a disease that happens in your pelvis, right, around your uterus, and it happens in many other places in the body, but that's how it's thought of. It's thought of as like a women's issue. And so that can be something that can be difficult to discuss, but it's really important because it affects so many people. And it can look a lot of different ways, and it can be extremely hard to diagnose. Um, yeah, one of the things that's very personal for me is I actually had a surgery in 2020 very invasive. And my surgeon told me I did not have endometriosis, which was wrong. And the
Oh.
biopsies came back positive. So then I had to, go through the whole process again several years later because the problem hadn't been fixed. So, um, yeah, there's many things I can say, but that's kind of like the overview of why it's so important to me.
Yeah, I know that it's something that my mom struggled with. And yeah, they basically just told her, oh, you should just get pregnant.
Yep.
And this was like right when she started dating my dad. Apparently, it was the first time he actually met my grandfather, was when the doctor walked in and told him that. So,
Oh,
a
cool.
very uncomfortable first encounter. But yeah, and so she did get pregnant with us a couple of years later, but it was a struggle as a result of that. I'm a twin, that's why I say us.
Oh,
Um,
I
but
didn't.
yeah, I know that, like, as you said too, this affects so many women, but like your story is, so many don't get diagnosed until later. And um, is there something that you wish more people, whether it's people who are suffering from this potentially, or even just doctors, or just kind of the general population, what do you wish people knew about this more?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned they told your mom like, "Oh, just get pregnant." I think that's so fun. It's such a persistent sort of myth. There's a lot of like misinformation that goes around about endometriosis, like, "Oh, if you get pregnant, it'll fix it." Well, that's not true. Endometriosis is not curable, so you might not feel the symptoms of it when you're pregnant, or the growth might stop when you're pregnant, but it doesn't actually fix anything. Um, a lot of people hear from their doctors like, oh, well, just get a hysterectomy. That one drives me insane because endometriosis, by definition, grows outside of the uterus. So getting a hysterectomy does literally nothing. I mean, I can talk about another disease that happens inside the uterus where a hysterectomy can actually help, but endometriosis is not that. Um, so, one thing that drives me crazy is how many myths there are associated with this disease in particular. And one thing I really wish people knew more was like, A, it's not curable. So, you can have treatment, you can have things that help um, deal with the symptoms, and that's great if that works for you. You can have excision surgery, which helps take out the endometriosis you have currently and can greatly improve someone's quality of life. But typically, because it's not curable, it grows back. Um, yeah, I wish people knew sort of more of the facts rather than the misfacts, for lack
Yeah.
of a better word. And also, I wish doctors especially knew, sort of like, it's a condition that can manifest a lot of different ways. Like I was told for so many years I had IBS, which okay, like maybe I also have, but um I was told that like my headaches couldn't possibly be part of endo. Like, yes, they can. I wish that people had sort of a broader lens. Like, it's not just pain during your period or a painful period or pain in your uterus and abdomen. It's much more than that. And I feel like that's a really important thing too for people to know.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that even for me, like I suffer from depression. So that's, my kind of chronic thing that I deal with and do
Yeah.
treatments for. But there's so many more things tied into it. And, there's hormone things happening and all of these other elements and symptoms that people don't think necessarily are associated. But
Yeah.
you kind of start to realize all these things are connected and your body's kind of, it's not just like one little separate thing in a certain area, right? It affects everywhere.
Yeah. And actually, you know what that reminds me? The thing I heard for so long was like, well, you don't have, I don't think you have it, but like, even if you did, it's not worth getting surgery. It's not worth figuring it out because you'd have to get surgery. And that might be true as a 16-year-old. It might be true no matter what age you are. It depends on your quality of life. But like, at, for me, after like 15 plus years of being miserable, at what point does like, yes, a surgery is worth figuring this out, you know? I feel like it really depends for each person. Like, what are you dealing with? How is it affecting your life? And then sort of tailor suggestions from there, I feel like is something that I wish were more normalized.
When it comes to, obviously given, your coaching work, and I know you mentioned working on a book proposal and some other things that's kind of related to helping people who do deal with chronic conditions, what is something that you tell those people often to encourage them, or that you would want people who are maybe kind of in the thick of endometriosis or getting diagnosed, what would you want them to hear?
I think what I wanted to hear and needed to hear at this time when I was like in the very the worst sort of throes of my own situation was that like you are not alone. It can feel so unbearably isolating to have a chronic condition, especially if it's something that is invisible. I heard all the time, like, oh, well, you're young, you don't look sick. Like, okay, that doesn't mean anything. Like, it can be so hard, especially if there's no one else in your life who deals with a similar issue. It can be really hard to communicate about it. It can be really hard to deal with the fact that your body might not be able to do what it used to be able to do, and that brings a lot of grief. Um, so I think the main thing is that you like it might feel really isolating, but you are not alone. And finding other people who had been through similar experiences or who, had had surgery or even just who sort of got what it felt like to wake up every day with something that was unpredictable and really emotional and mentally draining. That really changed my experience of my own situation. And so I would really encourage people to find others in whatever format works for them that are dealing with similar things.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Where is the best way for people to kind of find you and your resources and the services that you offer?
Yeah, thanks for asking. My business is called Revive and Thrive Coaching. So it's reviveandthrivecoach.com or Revive and Thrive Coaching on Instagram. And I'm like literally always happy to just chat with somebody about what's going on with them. I've had so many friends of friends of friends just be like, "Hey, can you just talk to this person about what they're dealing with?" Like, of course, I'm really happy to connect with people because again, it's that feeling of not being alone that for me it was so incredibly important several years ago when I felt so alone. So